Welcome to Conexiones. We are live again. This is a new episode, and we have a very special guest with us here. His name is David Alvarez, or David Alvarez, and he's going to be talking about his work with La Voz de la Comunidad, a coalition here in town that advocates for Latino youth in many different aspects. He's going to be telling us all about that. We also visited the Tet Festival, the Vietnamese celebration of the New Year, and we're going to take you there to see how this beautiful community celebrates their tradition in town. And we don't have a calendar of events tonight because we have a bunch of parades and family grass, so we're just gonna send you to our website to find all the details for the parade schedule and for family grass. So welcome, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And I just want to thank you because you are doing this campaign and you reached out to all the local media, the all Hispanic and Latino media here.
That's right.
To help you spread the message that La Voz de la Comunidad is trying to spread. And Viva Nola is very happy to be part of that campaign. And before we get into that, I just want people to get to know you, who you are, and what you're doing through La Voz de la Comunidad. So David Alvarez, I know you have a Cuban background.
Yes, my parents are from Cuba.
Okay,
That's
so
right.
and you were born in New Orleans?
I was born in Baton Rouge. Spent
Okay.
2 years, from when I was 2 years old to 4 years old, I lived in Chile with my parents, and my father is an engineer, and he was there doing engineering work. And then at 4 years old, we came back and spent the rest of my life in Baton Rouge until I moved to New Orleans in 2001.
So which schools did you go to?
In Baton Rouge?
Yeah.
I went to St. Thomas More, which is a little Catholic school in right outside the neighborhood I grew up in.
Okay.
And I went to Catholic high school for high school.
And what about college? Tell me about your college experience.
I went to LSU, and college. I like college so much I stayed 6 years. I started off studying engineering. I thought I'd be an engineer, and then that didn't really work out. So I went into mathematics, and I stayed in mathematics all the way until I was a senior. And then they asked me to prove why 1 + 1 = 2. And after that, I was like, okay, maybe math is not for me. And then I turned around real quickly. My last year, I took a lot of classes and walked out with an undergraduate in history, if you can believe that. I might be the only guy that graduated with a history degree with a minor in mathematics, but that's me. And so then I went off and got married and taught at schools in the Northeast, and then came back and got a divorce, and then started living my life in New Orleans after I got my master's degree, and then started my professional journey that took me to where I am now, which is I work in behavioral health. I help communities address their behavioral health needs, and over the years, I'd be helping communities address their problems, and it was obvious that we didn't have any type of organization that was focused on the problems within Latino communities here in our area. And so after one meeting in particular, Mariana Montero, which I'm sure she's been on this show at some point, or she and I sat down and said, we need to put together something that addresses the behavioral health needs of Latino communities. And so we pulled a group of people together for an initial meeting in 2015, and everybody said, yeah, that'd be great. Let's do this, David. And I was elected chair of the initial chair of La Voz. And I led them through a strategic planning process, and then I started writing for some grants, and we started building, and now we have several grants, and we have a staff of 6, and we are doing prevention work in the greater New Orleans area.
And how did you pick the name?
La Voz de la Comunidad was picked by the individuals at the table that initial meeting, or maybe the second meeting. It was probably the second meeting. So after everybody agreed that is something that we wanted to do, is to have a coalition. Then the individuals at the table, we reconvened, and we determined what our mission would be. We determined what our name would be, and we chose La Voz because La is actually for Louisiana.
Okay.
So it's Louisiana, La Voz de la Comunidad, pero it's LA for Louisiana. And we thought that was kind of catchy, and that would help us in our ability to kind of address Latino communities throughout the state. More importantly, in the future, as we as a community grow in the state. Right now, we constitute about 4 or 5% of the population. Hispanic Latino is about 4 or 5%. But it looks to grow. It's going to be a larger percentage as the years go on. So I think that it's very important for us as a community to increase our voice.
That's right. So to have it in place to be there serving the needs of the community that is growing rapidly.
Yes.
And I just wanted to be like, can you be more specific as to the different programs that you cover? You said you get several grants, so these grants are
They're focused,
delegated for what?
Yes, they're focused on prevention. We focus on youth, and we also focus on families and community in general. We have, we want to impact the community. We want to follow strategies that are proven effective, and we have found out over the years that if you do environmental strategies, they're impactful in improving the quality of lives with individuals and communities. So within Latino communities, we're trying to institute policies, we're trying to raise awareness, we're trying to improve access to existing services. We do all of these things through funded activities. And then you made mention earlier about the media work, of course. So we received this one grant, and part of the grant was to raise awareness about communication within Latino families with respect to substance abuse, and how important it was to have that communication within the family, and that it's a protective factor for our youth. It builds protection within our youth and within our communities. And so we have a media campaign that's a national campaign that we've brought to multiple media outlets that serve Spanish language markets here in Southeast Louisiana, and that's one aspect of the multiple activities that we have. La Voz has a budget of almost $500,000 a year, and we are focused on improving the quality of lives within Latino communities throughout the area, and we're endeavoring to do that, in a collaborative fashion. We go into the communities where, or we're called into the communities where there are issues, and we try to find available resources and bring whatever resources we have to those individuals. But we have a lot of volunteers. We meet the last Wednesday of every month. We meet at the Boy Scouts of America's building at 9 a.m. the last Wednesday of every month.
And I was there for the last meeting because we're going to have an article that talks about the organization as well for next month's edition. And I was really impressed to see the amount of people that are participating and that are getting involved. I mean, that is a great accomplishment from my perspective, to engage people who are in the places that they are helpful. Like I saw people in the health industry, I saw people in the media, I saw people from schools, and I mean, I thought the engagement was impressive. And so how have you reached out to them? Why do you think that's been so successful?
Well, that's a good question. I think that when I reach out to individuals, I try to make sure that I message to them that my success and the success of La Voz is tethered to your success. If you're not better, we're not better, because that's why we're here. Everybody makes their choices in life, and I had the benefit and the privilege of having a lot of professional choices, and this is a calling. I chose to focus my energies to bring resources to Latino communities, because I grew up in an immigrant household, and that's unique from non-immigrant households. Not to judge it. It's different.
Right.
And that difference, I don't see it having voice in policy. That difference, I don't see it being understood in a lot of social circles and a lot of professional circles. So I think that this group, La Voz, can really help in shining a light on that difference and helping non-immigrant individuals kind of helping them navigate and helping them work within immigrant communities.
And there is a feeling right now in our society where immigration is seen in a negative light. And because of the work that you guys do in the coalition in La Voz de la Comunidad, with behavioral health, I want to know more about like the vulnerability of those young people who are just immigrating into the United States, who are having to deal with this shocking experience, because it is shocking in some ways. And can you talk to me a little bit about the experiences that you have dealt with through the work you're doing?
Oh, I mean, we see families families exhibit certain things. We see it all the time. Number one, probably the one thing that we see the most is fear There's an immense amount of fear within a lot of Latino families here. Obviously, for those that are not documented, that fear exists. But then it's, it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled when you look at the youth within these family systems. That they may have been born here, but they're living in the daily fear of their family being broken up by some kind of law enforcement, ICE or whatever. That is real, and the reverberations within the community are incredibly negative. Not accessing services is something that is a real problem, and that goes with any group in the United States.
Right.
But with Latinos, we don't access services at a rate that we should, and it's scary. And so if we could just impact that could change the lives of many young kids, because their families could get the services that they need. And so we're hyper focused on the behavioral health services and making sure that the strategies that we're using that the federal government is funding us to do and within the communities, that those are impactful in getting individuals to access existing services. I think that's one key goal. I mean, we have some big goals in our work. We want to increase community capacity. That's a technical way of saying that we want to help Latino communities build what they have within their communities so that they can handle their business autonomously and independently and make sure that things get handled. And that's important to me, and that's important to everybody on my staff. We all have come together organically, and we're all there for the same reasons, which is for the betterment of our communities. And so we really focused on highlighting what it is that we can impact on, the things that we can change, and the things that we can work on now. And that's what we're trying to do to address those issues.
And some of the way of doing this is working through, like, with the schools, right?
Yes, we do.
How is that? How is that involvement?
Well, with schools, we're trying to build leadership. So we just, it's interesting you bring up the schools. We just came back from Washington, D.C. with 6 students from Bonneville who, had obviously never been to Washington, D.C. And, they just started working in our leadership group. And we brought them to D.C. and we trained them. When we landed in New Orleans, the students, they grouped the staff together, and they said they were so excited about the things that they learned, and they were looking forward to putting together a campaign in Bonneville and leading that process. And it really is the genie in the bottle. It's something that we're trying to do, because that's building capacity, because those are our future leaders within the Latino community. And those are the individuals that we need to empower with that type of organizing and leadership, and to make sure that that our youth are making sound decisions, and they're navigating this world correctly. And so we're very excited about that, and we've gotten more funding to build upon that and do that in other schools and other parts of the area. So we're looking at, but that's one of the many things we're doing. Yeah.
And you were in Washington, D.C. for a week?
Yes, for a conference.
And tell me about the conference.
The conference is hosted by the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, and SAMHSA, which is the federal government's funding arm for the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. So that's whenever Congress decides to spend money on mental health and behavioral health, that money goes through SAMHSA. And so it was SAMHSA and ONDCP. We focused on prevention and communities and how to make communities. And there's over 700 communities throughout the country that follow the very same model that La Voz follows. And it's a strategic.
Let's talk about it.
It's a well-researched, got a lot of data behind it. It's a model that has 12 sectors, and you may mention them earlier. It was something that impressed you. You said, I saw, healthcare, I saw education, I saw media. Well, the design mandates that. The design for the coalition is that you must have these 12 sectors represented, because the research says that these 12 sectors are participating in your initiative, you're going to be successful. You have a greater chance of success. And so that's what we endeavor to do. We endeavor to have people from all those sectors at our meetings, from religious sector, from civil service sector, from government, all of that. And we want them at the table. So when we are talking about, the issues that are facing, our Latino youth and their families, they're at the table too. And so we can work together to kind of address those.
Very nice. We have more things to talk about, so we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back to discuss the campaign for the talk They Hear You.
Okay.
At Brown Tax Services, we know our clients and offer planning strategies to protect their profits. Miriam Brown's expertise, professionalism, and great customer support make Brown Tax Services the best company to handle your accounting, payroll, and tax preparation. Make every dollar count with Brown Tax Services. Call now 504-362-0540 or visit miriambrown.com. Located at 512 Terry Parkway, Suite C.
¡Ay, qué bueno! Jamie tendrá una fiesta.
¿Y sus padres estarán ahí?
Claro que sí, mami.
Dime, ¿no crees tú que van a beber alcohol ahí, correcto?
No, no creo.
Isa, sabemos que hay presión de muchos para tomar, pero te pedimos que no bebas. El alcohol puede hacer que hagas cosas de las cuales te puedes arrepentir.
Seguro que a Dani nunca le preguntan sobre esto cuando él sale.
Sí me preguntan, y tienen bastante razón.
Hable, ellos escuchan. Patrocinado por el Departamento de Salud y Servicios Humanos de los Estados Unidos.
So we just looked at one of the videos provided for this campaign talk, They Hear You. And I went into the website and I checked it out because I have a son who's almost a teenager and you have children as well.
Yes.
And it is true. When that time comes to have this talk, and we're in Mardi Gras season, we're in a city that's very conductive to alcohol and perhaps other substances being available and offered everywhere. And, sometimes I don't know if this is because of the culture that I grew up in, but it's kind of like a taboo. If you don't mention it, then they won't go into it. But obviously, research and other resources show that it is important to talk about these things, that it is necessary to sit down and have that talk.
Yes.
And I like their message saying anytime it's a good time to talk about it with your children. So what do you think about this? How is this approach healthy? Because you
Yes.
have a background.
Yes.
You're a counselor on this? You're education. Okay, I'm sorry.
Background. Yeah, I have an education background. But I think that what the campaign clearly shows is that anytime is a good time to talk. I would say that as an adult, as a parent, you delineate the adult from the child. I mean, that line needs to be clearly marked. And you talk about adult behaviors. And then you talk about how, negative those adult behaviors would be if a child were to try and do those builds. I mean, it's not just alcohol consumption. It could be sex. It could be gambling. It could be things that we know that children and adolescents shouldn't be doing, not because, maybe of some kind of religious belief. You're welcome to have those, but it's because we know that they don't have the skill set, ready. They haven't developed fully. The reality is that, physiologically, our youth aren't finished developing until they're like 21, 22 years old. I mean, that is like the science, it's solid. So the science says that you're technically an adolescent or a developing human up until you're around 21, 22 years old. And so that makes you a lot different than an adult. And I think that line is important to when a parent, so if parents want to have a party in their house with other adults and they're just going to be drinking and children are around, that's an opportunity to describe to children, the importance of children and adults and their different behaviors, and then how it impacts. The reality is that if adolescents begin drinking alcohol or doing any other kind of drugs, they are 6 times more likely to develop addiction. Their lives are impacted. Their entire adult lives will be impacted by the behaviors that they do in a small period of time in their lifeline, a small time. And adults need to have a skill of kind of sharing that with them so they make the proper decisions. I would recommend that for parents not to demonize alcohol or other drugs because, when our children look out to the society, they see it everywhere.
Right.
It can't be this evil. It's everywhere. So it's not to demonize it, but to say that that is of the adult world, and the consequences for you to use it are real and detrimental. Let me show you, or let me discuss what it looks like for somebody who's 14 and they start drinking every day. Let me show you what they look like when they're my age, if they make it. They are 10 times more likely to not even make it to a later age. 20 times the later, it becomes, if you start doing drugs when you're young, you're more likely to die early. When you tell children that, it registers with them. So that's what I would say.
And that's so valid, because we think teenagers don't listen to their parents, teenagers block absolutely everything we're saying, teenagers don't care, teenagers are gonna go and experiment. But really, like, I remember in Grace King High School, when this group, I don't remember the name of the group, but it was about drinking and driving.
Yes.
And the story of the mother who unfortunately lost her child because there was a drunk driver that crashed into, with many stories. Like now, as we grow up, we hear so many stories that are so sad and so fatal because somebody got behind the wheel of a car and they thought they just had a few drinks and that it wasn't impairing their ability to drive. But now we know that, it's fundamental to use these resources that we have now with Uber and Lyft. And I mean, I'm just reinforcing this for the Mardi Gras time, because people still get behind the wheel, and I don't understand why we are not conscious enough to not do that anymore. But even to this day, I remember that talk, and yeah, I was a teenager, and perhaps I wasn't paying attention 100%, and I'm not talking really about me because I do pay attention, but other students weren't really into it. But I mean, that stuff gets registered.
Yeah, I mean, developmentally, when you're young, like a teenager, you're listening, but the what the last part of your brain is that develops? It's like right here in the frontal part. That's like the last part that becomes fully wired up and developed, and that's the part that kind of governs your emotions, the part that kind of helps you do really complicated and helps you to control yourself and not react. And that's the part that helps you think abstractly too. And so yeah, that's why when you're a kid, you're listening, but it's hard. It takes you a while to process certain things because developmentally, you're not there yet. So but they're listening, and that's what the campaign says.
Right.
And so since we know that they're listening, make sure that our messages are positive, and then they focus on the children and the adolescents, the realities of substance use for them. Okay, and what are the consequences? I always, when I can tell you, when I look at my children, I tell them, I was like, if I decide to drink 6 beers at 40-something years old, it's completely different than if you decide to do it. If I do that once a week and you do it once a week, you may not make it to 40-something. And I'm here already because I wasn't doing that when I was a kid. I was playing football, and I wasn't doing that. So kids, I just tell children, be children, enjoy being, because you're going to have to be adult for the rest of your life. Most of your life you're an adult.
And it's boring.
Enjoy being a kid. And I know you want to act like an adult. Trust me, you'll have most of your life you'll be an adult, so you'll be acting like an adult most of the time. You're going to wish you were a child again when you get older. So these are the messages, these are the kind of conversations within families. And in Latino families, it's different. I grew up in a Latino family, and we didn't talk about that. My dad had a bar in the house, and but they didn't, offer me or whatever. But it was always there,
But there are some experiences that are different, where the parents are telling the children at 13, you need to try it with me first.
Yeah, and that's when the awareness comes in, and that's when we tell those parents, because the children are going to be one group, but those parents, once they're aware of the real biological impact of having a lot of alcohol into a developing human body, what it does to that body's brain and liver and into lungs, all of that, I mean, it's incredibly impactful. If a child at 14 starts drinking every day, it is a disaster for that child physiologically. So, the adults within our communities need to be aware of that.
You gave me a good example last time we spoke, and I want you to repeat it because I thought it was very interesting and to the point. And it was about changing that behavior and that environment around young people. And you used the example of, I don't remember exactly what it was. I remember it was good. And it involved a pregnant lady and people
yes.
offering, was it a cigarette?
Yeah.
Or?
Okay, so I remember. So, if you were sitting at a bar and a pregnant woman, we're talking 9 months, she's about to give birth, comes and sits at the bar and starts ordering shots, I would hope that you and the individuals around there, especially the bartender, would be like, "Oh no, lady, we can't do," because we're, because of the awareness campaigns and the public health campaigns regarding fetal alcohol syndrome, we know that that woman is impacting, is hurting that child that's about to be born. We know that that's happening, and we know that that child that's born will have a very difficult life. I mean, kids, that are born fetal alcohol syndrome kids are, when they, their life, they have a lot of negative outcomes. So if that individual was to sit at the bar, I would expect that the norms would be, oh my God, get out, right? So, and I think that that's where we're there. You can't be in here. Well, I would want the same thing if we were at a party of all adults and there's a 14-year-old and somebody's giving that 14-year-old shots. I would expect all the adults to be like, stop, no, get out. This isn't for you. You're 14 years old. Believe me, you're going to have plenty of time to do this when you get old. But now, I would want the same type of norm around that as the norm that exists around if there was a pregnant woman coming.
Like, what are you doing?
Like, what are you doing? I mean, really not,
kind of like we have to get judgy about these things.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it just, we have to protect. It really is a child protection thing. It ultimately is. I focus on youth. My professional career has always been focused on youth. From starting as a teacher, and then everything that I've done has always been centered around youth. And I mean, it is incredibly important, to keep youth in healthy environments where they're not traumatized. Well, unfortunately, within Latino communities, because of asylum and immigration and that incredibly traumatic experience of leaving one home and going to a new home, which is within a completely different culture,
right? The
trauma associated with that, it's already bad enough. We don't need to include the trauma that's going to come with early use of alcohol and other things in that life, because that's going to traumatize as well. We need to be hyper focused as a community on harm reduction, and we really need to be focused on trauma and making sure that our behaviors are healthy behaviors. And drinking with children is not a healthy behavior. That's not healthy at all.
No, it's not. Before we wrap up, which we are close to do, we're going to come back and talk about 2 more things.
Okay.
But I want to invite everybody to come and learn about the Vietnamese Tet Festival, which celebrates the New Year in that culture here in New Orleans East. So let's take a look.
Katrina. I am a sophomore in college, and what's happening today is we're having the Vietnamese Tet New Year's. So we have a festival, we have it annually, it's 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11 to around 11 p.m., so it's 12 hours. It's a whole family celebration, everybody comes together to celebrate the New Year's, have fun. We have line dancing, we have a lot of food. Community started with the Vietnamese diaspora that came over after the Vietnam War. They escaped, they came and settled here just because Louisiana climate is closer to Vietnam back at home. So they needed to settle here. So that's where we've been for a couple of decades now. After we settled down, we made a community, we started running families. Everybody's close to me, everybody knows everybody here. Because of Hurricane Katrina, a lot of families did move away. But for us to keep in track of our culture from back at home, we have this festival and we have to spread our culture, our food, our language with all the kids for the next generation to come up. Our community is about maybe a couple 100,000 people because there's one that's in the east. There's also the ones across the river in the West Bank. There's 3 other small churches there. We try to get them to learn the language, also teach them how to cook. We also have youth groups here. to get them to remember, like, these are your traditions. So we try to keep it alive for the next generation by just teaching them, like, why it's important and, like, why it's so, like, you're so lucky to be multicultural, to have American culture but also Vietnamese culture in you, and you're thriving. At this festival, if you're not familiar, I know recently pho has been a very popular cuisine that's been very popularized in America specifically. So we have pho, which is basically noodle soup. There's different varieties. There's a vermicelli bowls. We also have what's like kind of a crepe, and then it's called bánh xèo, and it's like a crepe and it has like meat, vegetables in it. There's different varieties. We also have different like desserts with like milk teas, which is like also known as like bubble tea or boba that most people recognize it as. There's a lot of Vietnamese like cultural food. So come spread our culture, and I hope you guys can come.
Chúc mừng năm mới Lunar New Year. Happy New Year.
La temporada de taxes ha dado inicio y se acerca la fecha límite para realizar su declaración de impuestos. ID Card Center cuenta con agentes autorizados para gestionar su declaración, contestar todas las preguntas acerca de su reembolso y para tramitar su número y TIN. Los dígitos medios del 83 al 87 deben renovarse ahora. El equipo de ID Card Center cuenta con el conocimiento y la experiencia para guiarlo en su declaración de impuestos. 3901 Williams Boulevard, Suite 7, en Kenner, 504-305-4832.
One of the things that I enjoy about living here in New Orleans is like that we get to try all these different cultures and all these delicious foods. It's just amazing. And and the festival is really nice. We missed a big part of it with the fireworks and the dragon dances, but I recommend that for everyone to go there next year and try amazing food, and they have these bubble teas. I mean, it's a great experience right here in New Orleans East.
Oh yeah.
So to wrap up, because we said that 30 minutes was too long, but we can definitely go into so many more things.
Okay.
The work that you mentioned about working with the stores also to change that environment when children and young people walk into it, that the first thing we see is all the alcohol and the beer. And so talk to me a little bit about that work.
So for people who own corner stores, you know, they set up their alcohol in certain places, kind of like primary places where, you know, when a customer walks in, they might have a tub of beer on ice because they're catering to, maybe they're next to a big factory and all these folks are going to come in and grab beer, cold beer, and leave. It depends on the situation. What we do is, within Latino communities, what we do is we go in and we assess. We do an environmental scan to see how the store is set up, and then we advise the owner on how he can rearrange, or he or she can rearrange the store in a fashion to where youth aren't going to have to go through this gauntlet of beer and alcohol to get to the candy and gum that they want to get to. And so we also, you know, would hope that the owners of these places won't sell alcohol that really is marketed to youth. You know, they sell alcohol in small little containers that with little glossy candy type names like Glow Pop or whatever, and it's sold right next to sodas, and you know, children, and if people aren't paying attention, if clerks aren't paying attention, you know, youth could be going in there and buying, you know, alcoholic beverages without, you know, anybody knowing, and that has happened. I mean, in many communities we see that. So we go in and we try to have the individuals, because most people, if not all owners of these places, they don't want to, you know, hurt the community that they're in. They don't,
or break the law.
They don't want to break the law. I mean, so it's just a matter of coming in, saying, okay, this is what we see, and this is what we recommend you do to get these substances in their proper place, so the youth that are navigating this place don't have to do all that.
And lastly, you have an event coming up on May 15th Tell me about that.
Yes, it's going to be a soccer tournament / movie night.
Okay.
It's going to be out in the east, at a park in the east, which the name escapes me right now.
We'll put the flyer soon.
Yes, we'll have a flyer out. But we'll be out there. We'll have a movie, and before the movie, we're going to have some soccer games, and we're looking forward to that.
Family friendly. Everybody can come out.
Everybody come. We're going to have food. We're going to have vendors. We're going to have plenty of games. We'll have face painting, and of course, and it'll all culminate once the sun goes down. Well, and it's going to be on a Friday, so after work, get there and enjoy the daylight and enjoy all the festivities, eat and enjoy and let the kids burn energy. And then once the sun goes down, the movie will start and everybody can kind of get situated. Bring your lawn chairs. We'll have some other things that people can lay on. But for the most part, just find a little spot and enjoy the movie with your family.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We'll look forward to talking to you soon.
All right.
And we'll be working together. I'll be happy to keep collaborating with you guys.
Well, I look forward to it, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to kind of build the capacity within our communities.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Anna-Marie.
So we'll see you next time. We'll be here again next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Thank you for joining us.